When did you first get into script editing, and what drew you to that role?
It's really interesting because, yeah, I mean, like all of us, when you start out, you don't quite know well, some people do, but most people don't necessarily know what they want to do. And I just knew I really wanted to be in the world of storytelling in whatever form. And so I started in theater and did years and years of theater. And then I ended up working on a show and being asked by one of the actors on the show if I wanted to work with some filmmakers. And I said, well, look, I don't know anything at all about film. And they said, well, you don't need to, we'll teach you. And that ended up being the Coen Brothers. So that was my first gig. And but all along it was always, I kind of, even in the theater, I kind of always knew that somehow it was about the writing. It very soon became clear that it was the actual writing. I was always drawn to the writers. Like even when I was working on theater, I would be like sitting right by the playwright. It was always like, what does he want to change? What is she, what's going on with the storytelling? And then being with the Coen Brothers, I was lucky enough to hear them like writing their scripts and kind of going, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Like, kind of knowing pretty early on. But even still, after that, I kind of took some detours because I also really wanted to have a lot of different experiences. And I think that that's really helped my career. I mean, I've done a lot of different jobs. I was casting, obviously PA work, writer's room work, script supervising work. I mean, a little stand-in. I've done like kind of everything at one point, or even some AD stuff, like, very like basic AD stuff. And that's helped me in the fact that when you're working on a production, that you just kind of know what everybody's doing and how the struggles everybody has, so that you have sympathy and care for what everybody does. And it's really helped, I think, my career overall, which sounds really strange, but it has. I think just having a sense of what everybody's dealing with has helped me working with writers and working with producers, and just kind of trying to make the process as easy as possible.
I mean, having worked with award-winning screenwriters like the Coen Brothers and Steven Spielberg, could you tell us a little bit about that experience working with them and what you learned from that?
Sure. I mean, I think when I think back on it, I mean, I think the main thing that I really realized was just how dedicated and how hardworking they are. They treat it is a job. They treat it like, even on days when, they're just going in to write or whatever, they have a schedule. They have planned ahead. They have, they are in at 9:30, they take an hour lunch and they leave. And at dinner at like 6 o'clock, unless they have other things to do. And so the discipline of how they discipline their time and how much time it takes, I think that's one of the things that young screenwriters really forget is, by young, I mean not in age, I mean in the process, but that we're all so used to things coming very quickly and instantly. And when those scripts took 3 years, 4 years to work on every day, and not just in the writing, but also storyboarding and planning, but also in the writing, some of them took quite a few years, and letting them sit and then coming back to them after a couple of months. So I think that it's patience in a way, dedication in a way, and kind of a work ethic that was just very, very determined to kind of treat it like a job. And even when there was no buyer for film, there were no producers involved, it was just like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen with this project, but treating it every day like this is my job. And that was a great lesson, and this is something I have to remind writers all the time, kind of go, yes, I know you've done 3 or 4 drafts, but we're talking about people who, some of these scripts have been through 30 drafts, 40 drafts. And not that they have to be, but it's a matter of allowing them to each project to take the time it needs to be done, and not feel like you're up against the time all the time, like just letting it breathe a bit. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's thank you for sharing that. We really don't often hear that said enough. I don't think I think we do live in a bit of a microwave culture where kind of expect results probably far quicker than it takes in screenwriting, because it does take so long to get it right.
It really does. And I mean, you know, even when, you know, if you're working in the theater, you can play with things, and you can kind of, you have a bad night, you can change it, you know, the next day the writer can be there and you can try something new the next night. But when you're filming, it's on film, you know, and you want it, you know, so you really, the preparation, it's all about the preparation and getting it as close to what you really want it to be as possible. And I think, you know, I know that it isn't always, you're not always able to take your time because you're on deadline sometimes. And sometimes, you know, you're a writer for hire. It's not like, oh, this is my baby. You're writing for a brief and you have to do that. But certainly, I think that, you know, there's a lot of times when we need that extra time, we should be taking that time. And it's my philosophy anyway. I know that not everyone would agree, but I think that if you take, when you take your time, especially for those really passion projects, it pays off.